You are listening to the Hodges Huddle, where we discuss all things in the wide world of sports. Here's your LSU sports team.
Welcome in to the Hodges Huddle. I'm your host, Michael Poggi, alongside, of course, as always, my wonderful coworkers, Randilyn Wilson, Alex Sheesley, not to mention Jaden Smith in the back doing his thing on the switcher, and William Gilreath with production helping us out. So, y'all, how we doing on this fine Monday evening? Victory Monday, you could say. How y'all doing?
First time in a minute. We're coming to the stretch run of the Hodges Huddle this semester. We got two more. Crazy, crazy world.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a long day, and I'm really tired, but I'm pushing through.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm glad everybody's in a good place. We have a lot to talk about today. LSU football getting a big win this past weekend over Arkansas, as well as talking about the coaching search a little bit. I'm just going to ask a little question about that, and then we will also be talking about men's basketball and women's soccer at the end. So first things first, let's talk about getting that big win from LSU over Arkansas in their final SEC home game of the season. Winning against the Razorbacks 23-22 in a close one on Saturday where, we saw a little bit of everything, right? Stellar defensive performance, trickery on the offense, and, a couple of firsts, especially from certain people. So Coach Frank Wilson gets his first win as the interim head coach of the Tigers. How huge was that win for him and this football team? Talk about the meaningfulness of the whole situation.
Hard for it to be understated. At a surface level, the boot stays in the boot as it belongs. But LSU needed something. They needed something to kind of hang their hat on after the last month of it being, lack of success on the field and, quite frankly, a dumpster fire in the national lexicon. They get a win. They get something that they can kind of say, hey, we can build from this, and we're going in the right direction now. You're turning the ship. And for Frank Wilson, it's hard not to feel just over the moon for him. The fight you saw on the field for him, I think a lot of that, or the fight you saw on the field, I think a lot of that was for him and for kind of the fan base as well. You saw after the game, players running up to the fans in the student section and kind of being like, thank you for riding it out with us. So I think it's sort of a cultural rejuvenation and kind of washing away some of the stuff that happened during the Brian Kelly saga, both as in terms of his tenure as head coach, but also the fallout from that. And I think also from an Alex Atkins offensive coordinator play calling standpoint, X's and O's really refreshing there. Saw some unorthodox stuff, some stuff that, maybe back to the playbook that even if it didn't work out, you could see the vision there and was really, really refreshing to see. So overall, a great day for LSU football and something that they can build on from here.
Yeah, I think it's a great win. Definitely a win that you wanted to see as well because we haven't won in, 3 weeks now? That was our first loss in 3 games. So, I think it's huge. And not only just for the culture, but I think for Coach Wilson and the players, it's a huge confidence boost. And I think it was definitely needed. And it kind of gives the fans and the students a little bit of hope out of the big situation of us not having Brian Kelly anymore and, getting a new AD and OC, everything like that. So I think it was great. And I'm just really happy for him, honestly.
Yeah, I think it was an amazing situation. It was a tough game. It was a battle. It was kind of what you would think it would kind of be, especially with these teams, dealing with what they have all season, both of them.
And they always play that game close.
Right.
It's always been close. 23 was a last-second kick. They're going to play that game, tight.
Right. And so, I think it was good for Coach Wilson. I think it was well-deserved. This is a guy who puts his heart and soul into the program, and the players respect him for that, and they love him for that. So I think it was really cool to see Caden Durham dumping the water on him, them running over to the boot right away as soon as that final snap happened. So I think it was huge. I think all around, I think it's just a good momentum boost. And it's super meaningful. It's everything that you kind of wish for if you're Coach Frank Wilson and his family. It's an amazing moment for his family, amazing moment for him. Next step in that coaching career. Hopefully, he's able to finish the season out strong, and he'll get rewarded for that. So I think it's very cool to see. Cool moment out on the field, especially going down the way they did early in the football game, being able to find a way and claw back. Obviously, that Arkansas defense isn't very good, but you went up against one of the best offenses in the country. So being able to hold them at 22 points and find ways to do it on the offensive side of the ball also to win you that game was very awesome to see, and it was a big moment for Coach Wilson and the Tigers. So Michael Van Buren gets his first win, since we're talking about first a little bit, as the starting quarterback of the LSU Tigers, with Garrett Nussmeier being ruled out with an injury. Kind of with that, MVB has played in 4 games. So if he makes one more appearance, his redshirt opportunity is gone. And that was kind of his plan coming into LSU this season, so that he could redshirt, come back next year as a redshirt sophomore, and have 2 more full seasons of eligibility before heading to the draft. Well, 3, but 2 before he would be able to go to the draft. What are your thoughts on how he played, and what do you think happens from here for MVP?
Talked about it on Sunday. I think all circumstances considered, that was the best game of football that Michael Van Buren could have played. Not the best quarterback game you're going to see from LSU, ever, but the player that he is, made things happen with his feet, extended plays, evade pressure, mobilized to get stuff going, and then when he had to make throws, he delivered in leverage spots, high pressure spots. End of that game, the touchdown throw to Bauer Sharp, that's 3rd and 8 minutes left in the game. With that Arkansas offense, you don't know if you get the ball back with a chance to win on that possession if you don't get a touchdown there. So really great stuff from there, almost veteran stuff from him there. This week alone, playing him in full, I think that was the right decision. I know, obviously Nussmeier's injury kind of forced their hand there. But at the start of the week, it was kind of split snaps. You got to go all the way if you're going to play him. And I think in terms of the red shirt discussion, you said it was the plan. I ended the year agreeing with you. I think that was the plan. But you know what they say, best laid plans of mice and men never really works out. So, look, you see where Nussmeier is. You're bowl eligible now. You don't really have much to lose. But you see where Nuss is. If he can play, I don't want to put Picarella in, obviously. So if he can play, I think you go with that. But at the same time, if he's not good, if he's where he's been, I think you got to just kind of stay the course, which has been charted over the last 2-3 weeks, and give the ball to number 11.
Yeah, I would say for his performance, I thought it was as good as he could have been, like Alex said. I definitely think people may be a little hard on him for the game, but at the same time, like, it was his first starting game, so I thought he did very well. He didn't really crack under pressure, and I think as the game kind of went on, he got a little more comfortable playing in Death Valley especially. I will also say, though, if Garrett is, a little bit more healthy in the coming weeks, I think you definitely stick to that to protect the red shirt if that is something that they wanted to do. But I agree, like, if you're going to, consider playing him, then you just got to play him all the way.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with you. I think, but first things first, I think he did an amazing job with the cards that were dealt. I think, the way he played resembled a little bit what you saw last year at Mississippi State. And, this is a guy who has experience. It's not like it was his first start ever in college football. This is a guy who started almost every game, if not every game, at Mississippi State as a true freshman. So this is a guy who you knew what you were getting when you got him in the transfer portal. A guy who can throw the ball, a guy who can step up in the pocket and move when he needs to. I think it allowed the LSU offense to really settle in. Obviously, only scoring 23 points against an Arkansas defense that has struggled all year long. But with that being said, he got the job done. And at the end of the day, wins aren't always pretty, and it doesn't matter how you get them. It just matters if you get them. And in a situation that LSU is in right now, in the way that this whole season has gone, that's all you need to do is just go get a W. And so I think it was really nice to see. Obviously, the defense played their part, forcing turnovers all over the place, just bouncing off the walls, playing amazing defense. But Van Buren still had to march down that field, drive,
and win you that football game.
And so it was really nice to see that. It was nice to see the offense move. Yes, it's a struggling defense, but it was still comforting to see. And I'm interested to see what happens moving forward. I think if Nussmeier is healthy, they're probably going to ride with Nussmeier. But I think you're completely correct. If they have any, if they're going into Norman, Oklahoma, and they're playing Oklahoma, and let's say LSU is, in a tighter game against Oklahoma, and Nussmeier is kind of struggling out there, I could see them throwing in Van Buren. And I don't necessarily agree with that decision.
I would not agree.
And I don't agree with that. And I agree with you there. Like, if you're gonna do it, just go out and do it and start him.
You gotta, because the whole thing with redshirt is, if you burn it, it's because you're giving him experience, and so you got to maximize that. Mm-hmm. And so, I would not play him for a quarter to try and win a 7th or 8th game this year. That's silly.
Yeah, and you're already bowl eligible.
Yeah, exactly. So you've done what you needed to do in the regular season to accomplish like what the goals are. Like, there's no more ceiling, I guess. Like, you've hit it. So
No, I agree. So let's move on to a little bit more of the running game. Running back duo of Caden Durham and Harlan Berry had themselves a game on Saturday. Durham rushing for 65 yards and a touchdown, as well as Berry with 52 yards, although it was very exciting, 52 yards. He got you big plays in big moments, that big first down that won you the football game. So the run game was opened up a lot more, right? It was opened up a lot more in this football game with these two getting the love because of it. So how did the run game open up on Saturday, and what are you expecting from these two moving forward? Randall, I'm going to start with you.
Well, first, I think Caden Durham played incredible. That there's no doubt about that. I have also said in other pods I felt that our offense was a little bit predictable, but in this game I really didn't think so. In a way of, when you see that playbook kind of get opened, you see them go for more opportunities with the ball, and that's exactly what Caden Durham and Harlan Berry did. So, that's kind of, I think they're both great players, and they both have the skill level to really set off this offense, and that's exactly what they did against Arkansas and why we kept the boot.
Yeah, I tonight, Saturday, I think it served as a proof of concept almost to what LSU and what Alex Atkins has been trying to do with the run game. That Berry and Durham are super talented backs. They haven't had that room to operate, both in terms of a on-field sense of maybe the blocks aren't there, or the O-line isn't doing what they needed to do to help them create that. And at the same time, the splitting of snaps with Juwan Johnson and stuff like that, you didn't really get an opportunity to see these backs put up, 15, 20 carries a game. They got kind of, like you said, the bulk of that kind of love and the snap count there. So I think that, helps a bunch. And it sort of, this game, look, Arkansas's defense, bad. You don't have to sugarcoat that. It's not a good defense. But what Berry and Durham sort of gave for you there is it lets you identify that, okay, we can keep these guys, hold on to them, invest in the line at the portal, over the offseason, and get yourself a line that can, become a brick wall for these dudes to kind of create space for them and really show out next year and kind of spark the offense on the ground.
I mean, I agree. I think this running back room finally looked a little bit like what you're supposed to see. I think these two guys, obviously, like you mentioned and like I've mentioned, this Arkansas defense is not good. So you kind of have to take a few of these things with a little bit of a grain of salt. But with that being said, you haven't seen the two running backs play that well
Yeah.
together all year. So it was very nice to kind of see. I'm calling them boom and zoom a little bit. I think Durham can end up being a really good goal line back for this team next year, and I think Harlan Berry could be a really good middle of the field back. And I think they're gonna, and they both have a really good relationship with each other. And they both understand what's going on. I talked to Caden Durham in the presser after the game, and he was asked, "What's it like with Harlan? How's it like playing with Harlan Berry?" And he says, "Look, man, I mean, Harlan does everything, and then whatever he don't do, I go out there and do it, and then whatever I don't go do, he goes out there and does it, and it's kind of like a feeding off each other type of mentality." And it was really nice to see. And how did the running back game or the run game, open up? Necessarily, I think that starts at Michael Van Buren.
Yeah.
And I think you have to. Michael Van Buren is not a Jaden Daniels. He's not a guy that's going to roll out and run for 120 yards and throw for 300. Like, that's not going to happen. But he offers up that threat. He offers up that threat of stepping up in the pocket and being able to move, and that just allows your guys in the backfield to get more touches. I don't know about y'all, but I know if you've been listening to this show for a long time, or at least this semester, I sat here and yelled about getting under center. If you're going to, hand off these balls and do, run options. And you know what they did on Saturday? They got under center like 4 times. And I haven't seen that all year. And it was just, I'm sitting up in the press box just smiling. I'm just up there having a blast. Because I think when you do stuff like that, when you have a certain quarterback that can kind of change, you can run read options with Michael Van Buren. And people will have to second guess themselves. So I think that's how it opened up. And I think it was a very exceptional performance from both of those guys. And, you got to credit everybody on the offense. Offensive line still needs a lot of work, but there's only so much you can do with 2 weeks left in the season. So, last question before we move on. Who was your MVP on Saturday?
Harold Perkins Jr.
Okay.
We talked about the offense here. Defense that's a great Arkansas offense. That's probably one of the best running quarterbacks in all of the SEC, and you held that offensive unit to 15 points. 7 of Arkansas's points came on a blocked punt. So, you look at this defensive unit, still know what weeks. Harold Perkins has been kind of that anchor for the team in terms of leadership, and he was all over the field. I mean, he always does that against Arkansas. It seems like, I feel like if you're a Razorback fan and you only watch Arkansas game, that dude might be the best defender on the planet.
I think it might just be a linebacker thing. Witt went crazy last year.
Yeah, I have no idea, but had a pick, had a sack, flew all over the stat sheet. So you don't win that game if a good Arkansas defense isn't neutralized in the way it was, and it was headed by Perk. So he kind of gets my award for this week.
I am going Coach Wilson. I know it's not a player.
Good answer,
but I just feel like everybody kind of needs to give him his flowers a little bit, and I know a lot of people have, but when you're thrown into a situation like this, he really has tried to make it for the better, and I think that really reflects on your players and how hard they played against Arkansas. So I gotta pick Coach.
And I'll go Mansour Delane. I think you can point at Harold Perkins, you can point at Michael Van Buren. I don't know why, but they just decided to test 4 multiple times throughout that game, and it just doesn't make sense to me ever. Like, why are you trying to test the best cornerback in football?
Put him in that seatbelt.
It was all night, and you saw multiple times they went after him on the goal line. They went after him on 3rd downs. And it just doesn't, I was sitting up there like, okay, yeah, go to the best player on the field. That makes sense. So I think the fact that they were testing him and it was every single time just in a seatbelt, that was very impressive to me. And like you said, this is a top 5 offense in the country with a quarterback who had a top 5 QBR going into the season or going into the game. So, I mean, you gotta understand with what you're dealing with there. And so, you got to give 4 his flowers as well. So I'm glad that we all 3 had a different one. But that's enough of LSU football for now. We're going to switch gears as we kind of transition to the PMAC and talk about this LSU men's basketball squad. The unranked LSU Tigers are 3-0 on the year and showing a lot of good signs for LSU fans that did not have a ton of expectations. So first things first, I want to ask you, who has been the most impressive to start the year for the Tigers?
I cheated. I looked at your sheet here. We have the same answer though. So Markel Sutton.
Well, we all have the same.
Great.
Well, it means it's correct probably. So I'll just start. He's been such a force at both ends. Has shot at a really great clip, super sharp with it, and then just he's a glass cleaner, man. He feels like either end of the floor, the possession will either come back to him or the opposing possession will end with him. So, we looked at him at the start of the year as an impact transfer. Those transfers, how they performed, that was going to be the litmus test for this team this year and kind of how far they could go. And Markel Sutton has kind of personified that as, the early returns have been really promising.
Yeah.
Well, now that everybody knows my answer.
Go ahead.
Everything. It's really everything that you said.
Explain the reasoning. Just tell us what you had.
He had a second straight double-double against FIU, and I think he's a great shooter. Right now, he has a 47% on the three-point range, and yeah, I'm excited to kind of see what more we can get out of him when we start playing bigger teams and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Since we all had that, I'm gonna transition. I'll go Mike Nwoko. I think, 17.3 points per game, transfer from Mississippi State, had 19 against FIU, 22 against New Orleans, started off a little slow, only playing 18 minutes, got 11 points against Tarleton State. You like to see that from your transfer. Shout out Will, by the way. But you like to... Yeah. Shout out, Will. You like to see that from your guys. You like to see that from your high class transfer, especially from the SEC. I'm expecting to see a lot more from him this season. I think having him and Sutton in that forward spot, in that kind of down low position, is really huge for this LSU team. They have a lot to build off of going into this, kind of stretch that they're going to get into here pretty soon. But I think he's been very impressive for this squad.
Just a super strong front court for this team so far, and it's been really impressive to see, and we'll talk about it here in a sec.
Yeah, exactly. So with the schedule starting out weaker than what we will see towards the middle and second half of the season, what are your expecting from this LSU team with the tougher kind of stretch that they have coming up starting on the 28th of November?
I think our preseason expectations are still probably in line, that they could get through the non-conference slate with just a couple of losses, 2, maybe even 1, depending on how it goes. Look, there's things to work on, obviously. Issues with being tidy on the, offensive possessions, turnovers, still maybe been a little bit of a question mark, I guess, for this team. But you look at it from a wholesale perspective, and this is a market improvement for LSU men's basketball from where it was 2 years ago, a year ago. It is leaps and bounds better. So I think, that's where we had them at. We had them as this is going to be a better team than it was last year, and so far that's tracked. So I think where they were, stick with it for now.
I agree. Literally exactly that. And I will also say the FIU game, I got to work, and they were top 25 for forcing turnovers, and we had quite a few, I would say. So there's definitely some improvement that can still happen. But for right now, I think, we keep them exactly where we had them on the other pods.
There's a lot of room to improve, and I guess that kind of ruins my next question that I had for you.
Sorry.
But I guess FIU, well, there's a lot of room to improve. They struggled a little bit against FIU, especially in the first half. Mm-hmm. But I think what the key is, and the big expectation is, okay, so you have, when the day of this episode comes out tomorrow on Tuesday, LSU will be hosting Alcorn State Tuesday night. And then Omaha comes into town, Markel Sutton revenge game. on Friday before the Western Kentucky game, and then you kind of heat up with on Friday, November 28th. You have Drake in the Emerald Coast Classic, and then you win that game and you play either the winner of Georgia Tech or DePaul, or you lose and you play the loser of Georgia Tech or DePaul. And that's, Drake has gotten a lot worse since last year, obviously, losing their coach, losing a bunch of their players. But still a good game. That's a good program over at Drake, mid-major. And then, you get Georgia Tech or DePaul. And those are two schools that are on the rise as well. And then right after that, as you enter December, you hit up Boston College. You go to Texas Tech in Fort Worth. Well, you play Texas Tech in Fort Worth. Then, you have SMU in New Orleans. And then you kind of have a little break before SEC play. But that little stretch right there of 4 or 5 games can be really, really crucial for this LSU team in terms of quad 1, quad 2, quad 3 wins before you enter conference play. So I think it's very important. I think it's very important, and we talked in the beginning of the year how it's very important to go into that stretch with one loss. Yeah. Texas Tech, you can lose that game. Mm-hmm. That's understandable. Everybody will understand that. And it's obviously understandable if you lose on the road to a team or something or if you lose to SMU. It's understandable. But you win those games, then everybody has a complete different outlook on who you are and what you are as a team. And I think, offensively, this team has been phenomenal. Shooting, I think, 56% from the field, second in the SEC in three-point percentage. And obviously, that's only 3 games of work, but at the same time, that's very important. And this is a team that struggled a lot on the offensive end last year, and so I think that's very important for this team. So I'm going to ask. I mean, I'm going to go back and ask. I think, what do you? Since we've gotten to see them play a little, I'm going to go back on our predictions and re-ask this question. Where is LSU going to go this season, and how much potential does this team have?
I can go. I think they have a lot of potential. I would say the way that they adapted during the FIU game, that was a big thing, like for me watching it. First half, like we said, it was very rocky, and there were definitely things, obviously, that you can improve on, but I think the biggest thing is how they went into the second half and started changing things. So I see them going as far as they kind of want to go. I don't see them getting stopped anytime soon. In this non-conference schedule? Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see them getting stopped in that, but it's kind of also just how far they want to go.
Yeah, I think they're going to hold where they're at. Again, that's kind of where I assessed it at the start of the year, was that this is a team that, could peak out as a solid midfield squad in the SEC and should, at the very least, expect to be in that kind of back-end midfield kind of spot. They're going to be a bubble team. I think it's completely fair to say that. That's what I kind of felt coming into it. That seemed to be the general consensus when we talked about it on the Sunday show. So, yeah, I think, you'll look, and that's where the team could be. They've played in line with those hopes, and obviously you got to meter it till you get to some of those, quad 1, 2, high Ken Palm ranked teams, and then the conference slate. But yeah, for now, I'd hold the course.
Yeah, 100%. I think they look solid. They look solid, and you mentioned earlier, this is probably the best roster that Matt McMahon has had since coming here to Baton Rouge. It's always really hard to assess a team. Especially even though we've gotten to see him play, it's really hard to really assess a team. My only concern about this squad is there doesn't really feel like a guy on the team who can just go out there and completely control the game. There doesn't really feel like a straight up just dude who can go out there, get you a bucket at any point. Like that was Cam Carter last year. Cam Carter could go out there and get you a bucket whenever you really needed him to. He was a bucket getter.
Well, I think that's got to emerge. You're 3 games into the year.
No, it will. But but what I'm saying is I haven't really seen, I don't think Deedon Thomas is that guy.
Sure.
I don't think DJ's that guy. And I don't really see Markel Sutton being that guy. I see a bunch of guys on this court 5 guys on the court that complement each other really well and that play well together. I don't see a just straight up individual. And that's obviously through 3 games, like you said, but I don't see just like a individual who can take over a game at any point. And I think when you enter SEC play, you're going to need to see something like that.
Yeah, but it's 3 games in the year. I feel like it's a squad with 2 returning players. You gotta wait a little bit to see that. I don't think it's necessarily fair to rule a bulk of these guys out. You gotta wait for kind of these situational moments to occur where you need someone like that to prove it. I
agree, but I disagree. I disagree because I think that you'll see that in teams, especially all around the SEC, that just have dudes. And I think teams that are going to go farther in this league are the ones that have a straight-up guy and a surrounding cast. So I think I'm not necessarily saying that they just don't have one. I'm saying I'm not seeing one yet, and there needs to be one moving forward. But let's move on. Let's move on to women's soccer. I want to talk about them a little bit as they have had an amazing season thus far, including a huge opening round win in the NCAA tournament against Houston Christian, and will play 5-seeded Iowa in Nashville on Thursday. Before the loss in penalties to Vanderbilt in the SEC championship game, this team went on a 10-game unbeaten streak, right? And really just got them there, allowing them to host. So how impressive has this squad been this season?
Another feather in the hat for LSU athletics, and I feel like the 10-game unbeaten streak had ended, but look, it's the penalties, that's soccer blackjack. You don't know how that's going to go. So been sustained excellence in the latter half of this season. And in the last couple of years, it was about 500, split in wins and losses and draws and all that. But this kind of takeover has been such a welcome sight, I feel like, in the LSU sports economy as a whole. I was at the Arkansas game, and even pregame, people were talking about, hey, I was at the soccer game, and it was a really great time. And so to see that, the long-term kind of ramifications of that, that's going to be really great for, LSU soccer as a whole. And so just a massive tip of the cap to Sean Hudson, her efforts to build this program into what it is right now. And I'm really excited to see what they can do going forward.
Yeah, I think it's highly impressive, and I think, we kind of said it right there, but this is also the lowest seed since 2020 to even get to the championship game, and the first one was Vanderbilt. So I think it's incredibly impressive. It's the 5th consecutive time under Coach Sean. So, yeah.
Very impressive. Team's been unbelievable. Been fun to watch all year. And really, really fun to watch in that last 10-game stretch. The SEC tournament was a blast to watch as well. And so I just think that this team has a lot of life and a lot of opportunity left in this SEC tournament. Obviously, if they beat Iowa, they have an opportunity to have that rematch against Vanderbilt, which would be a huge moment for this team. So I think, am I impressed? Absolutely. I wasn't really expecting to be talking about LSU soccer on November 17th. I wasn't really that wasn't on my bingo card, and I'm happy it happened. I think this is a program that has a lot of upside, and a program that when is good and when is right. It's LSU. You're gonna have fans come out and support, and will work the game against Houston Christian, and it looked like an amazing crowd. It looked like people were out there. It looked like students were out there supporting, and that means a lot. And that shows you kind of what the program has done this season and what the coaching staff has done to really just implement that for the girls and get into where they need to be. So let's talk as Iowa lost in the Big Ten quarterfinals to Wisconsin 3-0. But are not a team to be taken lightly, as they and LSU have about the same win percentage, around 700. LSU at 696, Iowa at 700 completely. So what does LSU need to do to beat this Hawkeye squad?
2 things. Convert offensively, understand you're the hot hand. LSU massively outshot Houston Christian 29-4. If they can generate shots, obviously that's not going to be the total against a team like Iowa as you progress, substantially better competition. But if you can shoot like that and shoot at maybe a little bit of a better clip, you're going to win that game. It's the same rate of converting those. Even then, you're still dominating possession. That's indicative that you're holding the ball on, and that's such a critical stat in soccer. So that that will be monumental. And then just mindset wise, going in, form is such an important thing in soccer. It's one of the only sports where, like, if you go and look up fixtures or matches and who's playing who, it's one of the first things that shows up. Last 5 games, what have they been doing? You talked about the LSU run. Iowa is 2-2-1 in their last 5. So ride that momentum advantage that you have, utilize it, and really hone that advantage that you have mentally, and go in and get that win.
Overloading them in the midfield, I would
Yes.
say, for sure. But also try not to, I know it's easier said than done, but not to get as sloppy. I think you need full concentration for this game. And
Yeah.
I mean, you need full concentration for every game, but not to lose the focus of your goal and what you want. And I think if you go out there and you know what you want and you got to go through them to get it, then that's exactly how you're going to win the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a team that has shown a lot of promise. And what they need to do to necessarily beat this Iowa team is just control that middle of the field. Completely control the middle of the field. And that, in my opinion, is the most important thing in soccer. Just controlling that center aspect, because everything rolls through there. You can make the outsides work. You can make the defense work as long as you are controlling that middle of the field. Everything else just comes. It's like the best baseball movie ever. If you build it, they will come. You know what I mean? It's just how it works. And if you're building that foundation, if you're building that type of play, if you're building that type of play for LSU, it's going to be very good. And especially with the amount of stellar midfielders that are on this LSU team, and the impressive forward ability, and that goes all the way from seniors all the way down to freshmen. You really just see that. And I think if they are clicking on all cylinders, you're going to kind of see a 3-1, 3-0 ball game once again. I think this LSU team is really good. They're hot. They're confident. And I think, getting shots on net. They've done a really good job at scoring on rebounds. They've been very good at that this season, and I think that's just another way for them to get points on the board. So I will ask you this: who is the key player for LSU on Thursday?
Ida Herman's daughter, tied for the team lead in goal contributions, leads the team in shots. Talked about it just now. It's so important that LSU overwhelms Iowa offensively. It comes from her, and it's really all, as simple as that. You look to your best offensive contributors, and she is her for that. It is as simple as.
Yeah, I have Jasmine Ferguson.
Okay.
I think they need her leadership in the back. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's who I'm picking.
Absolutely. Well, I have, and I talked a little bit about freshmen. I got Soraya Bailey, and you talked about goal contributions. Soraya's right there with 25 points, 9 goals, 7 assists, same as Ida. That is like, and that's from a true freshman, right? This is coming from a straight up true freshman forward. I think all 3 players are incredibly important. I think that scoring is key. You got to and scoring early, I shall say. And LSU has done a really good job with that this season, scoring in the first 20 minutes, scoring in the first 30 minutes of the game, and that's what's really helped them. And I think Bailey gives you an incredible opportunity at doing so. Very fast, good with her feet, great on rebounds, able to find the back of the net. So yes, and Will wanted me to mention Iowa lost to Wisconsin twice this season. LSU beat them earlier in the year, the only common opponent that both teams have. So interesting to see. This team plays on Thursday night, and then, of course, the winner of this game has an opportunity to play Vanderbilt if Vanderbilt gets it done in their game. So I think that's going to do it for us here today in the John Frisha podcast studio for this episode of the Hodges Huddle. Big thanks, as always, to Alex and Randilyn. Hope you all had as much fun as I did. Shout out to Jay and Will doing their thing in the back, as always. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. I'm Michael Poggi, and this has been the Hodges Huddle.